Well, what's up, Ian?
Morning. How you doing?
Doing well.
Yeah.
Doing well.
Hopefully you don't hear the kids squawking in the background. They're running around like maniacs.
No, no, not at all, actually.
Okay, well, we'll see how long the filters last and work. Um,
Well, hear a little bit of laughing.
yeah.
Very
Well,
quiet.
laughing's better than fighting.
Laughing's
That's
good.
due to come soon. So, uh, but yeah, how's what's on your list of stuff to chat about these days?
I mean, there's. I hate to continue down the geothermal train. Actually, I
You
don't.
don't hate it
I
at
don't hate it
all.
at all. No, no. But I don't want this to just be a geothermal only, forum. But it just seems to always come up, and maybe that's where a lot of my focus is. But
Yeah.
something huge happened on the 21st, which was just a couple of days ago, was the Nevada BLM geothermal lease sale. And there's some pretty, I wouldn't say surprising results, definitely anticipated, but
Are you
some
taking
pretty,
a victory lap, or is that what's going on here?
yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Um, so we can talk about that.
Yeah.
And then I think you had something that you want to talk about. We don't have to talk about, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I think it was on the circularity of this AI dialogue.
Yeah, it just seems like there's plenty of headlines right now related to concerns in the market about a bubble, full stop, just given the scale of investment. And I think it's reinforced with some of the um, novel transactions, I'll say, around the AI space and just how different players are, perhaps having a more of a circular relationship. So kind of interesting. We can talk about it. I haven't dug into like too much detail, but I think it's pretty relevant to where people are thinking about demand and so the current state of the market and to the extent there may be some froth where it's coming from.
Sweet. Well, let's do it.
Let's do the victory lap. I want to hear about the Nevada.
Let's start geothermal. Geothermal, baby. Um, yeah, so Nevada's historically been the biggest leaser of geothermal acreage. Um, they, if you look historically, like majority of land for geothermal is actually leased in Nevada. Um, but what's interesting about this sale is there's 380,000 acres up for lease through the BLM. 280,000 of those acres were actually leased, and that accounts for like more geothermal acreage leased of any year in history by a little bit if you just account for Nevada. So pretty big. Let's see some metrics. Average price paid per acre was $32, which is low. There's
Mhm.
reasons for that, just because there's so much acreage, there's so many stink bids in there that it's bringing down that average. I'd say if you removed the bids that maybe aren't as serious, that average would be quite a bit higher. Like just for reference, I think the average in Idaho this year was the biggest at 118 per acre, but they leased I think only about 24,000 acres. Utah and California hit plus $100 on average per acre, which is huge. But I think the real benchmark here is what the high price paid for these acres was, and that was about $410 per acre for some of the best positions, which mirrors some of the best in Utah just recently, but are definitely some of the highest ever in history, about a long shot. Like
Yeah.
um, highest paid per acre this year was in Utah at 412. There's two leases that went for about $410 per acre, which accounts for about $4 million in total from just those. So I guess for reference,
Yeah.
those two $410 per acre leases accounted for about $4 million, whereas the entire Nevada lease sale went for about 8.8. So like two bids accounted for about half the money spent on
Yeah.
this um, on this sale, which is really interesting.
So it's a lot of
Um,
acreage, but not really massive sums at this point.
no, no, I mean, yeah, if you compare it to oil and gas, it's still very low. And again, I think the
Yeah.
returns are different. There's still uncertainty behind it. It's not the same. I mean, it's not de-risked the same way that we see shale, and you're not going to get the same kinds of returns. Um, and
Yeah.
what else? Uh,
So it's
I
a lot
think
of acreage, but you said there's, I think you were saying there's more to come yet for the year. Like a lot of the excitement is you seeing this ramp of lease sales, pricing over the last 12, 24 months or so.
totally.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to have Idaho in December. But essentially, all of these lease sales have set records. So this was 8.8 million in Nevada. It
I'm
was.
laughing because the kids are starting to fight now. So
I hear it a little bit. It's not bad though. Um, so yeah, I think we're going to end up with like, and I guess not that much in the grand scheme of things. Maybe 20, 25 million spent on BLM leases through geothermal this year. What's really interesting to me is kind of the lack of transparency in who's leasing these, because there's a lot of, I think, um, I don't know what's the right word for them, like shell companies or representatives for other
like to
companies.
broker and stuff like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So the biggest bids are from companies that you would never heard of. These sort of professional services that my guess is they're representing Fervo, but I don't know. Fervo's, from what I understand, historically been leasing up a lot of land, and that's part of what their strategy is. But
Yeah.
there's some other names in there like Invenergy, and Ormat, Zanscar, which are names that you do hear about and are actual geothermal developers. So
I mean, so much of stuff rhymes with such classic oil field behavior, lease under broker, huge swaths of land being caught up, few really high spots, and then there's lots of moose pasture out there, but you lease it up for pennies on the dollar, just on the option value, and I don't know, I love it, and maybe it is for a moment, not, but like certainly that oil field mentality seems to apply here.
totally, totally. Another
I guess
another thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I guess just the only difference I guess in those parallels would be that rather being like resource risk subservice, and there's some of that, it seems like there's more of a bit of a technology play here that you're hoping that the rate of change turns stuff that's like long tail option value into, so it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Imagine if this acreage is de-risked, the value is clearly much
Yeah.
higher.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, what's interesting to me though is that you can overlay this data, um, to see where those the high value was spent, and Nevada has a pretty good geothermal gradient.
Hmm.
So you're it's kind of most of the land is on, what I would say, from a geology perspective, quite good. I don't know what the fractures look like in the subsurface, so there could be some components there of risk that
Yeah.
I haven't overlain, but um, it's access to transmission. High voltage transmission lines are like, it seem to be the leading indicator of high price paid,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. So it's not so much of the subsurface; it's the surface. It seems to be driving access to infrastructure.
Yeah. Huh. Well, it is power, so that seems to rhyme a lot, and especially given the state of the grid.
Totally.
Um, Well, it is interesting to watch, and like always easy to find these analogies and make sense given that subsurface resource should look like something, power should have those connections. Um,
Yep.
cool. Well, I guess we'll watch and see what happens with Idaho and more into 2026 and see how much of this stuff can actually get unlocked.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we're just looking at federal leases from the BLM, right? What's happening behind closed doors that we don't have a huge amount of visibility into.
Fair.
I mean, it's a
Well,
good indicator of the
yeah,
trajectory, right?
yeah. I wonder if there is some of that stuff in our like our land data sets.
Yeah.
We'll have to dig into that maybe
No,
separately.
yeah.
Should we pivot to the circular reference
Yeah.
problem?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, again, haven't dug in a ton and done a ton of research on it. I think the things that stand out is the massive capex that's being spent across industry. I think lots of folks have made, that point, close to 400 billion a year of capex just from the big hyperscalers, which is, in my books, 3 to 4 times bigger than upstream oil and gas capex spend in North America. So it's a massive, massive number. Um, and obviously the stocks have ripped on the other side of that. I think the last few weeks though, people have been pointing these like transactions between key players, Nvidia buying spare capacity from CoreWeave, and just when you kind of track the dollars, you get the sense that there is a degree of circularity, or in
Mhm.
some cases, accusation of pretty high circularity there. And whether or not that is really symbolic of a massive bubble, or is there something that's happening for real here? So I think that discourse is interesting, and um, often happens as you get these massive booms.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. But stocks only go up, so there's
Yeah.
so much hype layered into this. You're right. I mean, will we see a correction sometime soon? And I mean, everybody I'm listening to talk about this, that seems to be the direction it's heading.
I just think there has to be volatility, and stepping back, I'm sure you and I both would agree the trajectory is pretty clear. It's up and to the right. AI is real, the demand is real, the opportunity for the whole class of technologies around AI to be really impactful to the world is, I think we're just scratching the surface of. So if you kind of accept that, okay, that makes sense. The next phase, I guess, is you see huge velocity of investment on the other side of that. That's obviously pretty visible. But I think when things are moving so fast, the probability of getting a little out of sync in either direction from time to time is super high. And if the market's underwriting a trajectory above or below, so the actual trend line, there's all kinds of space for surprises. And you saw it with like the Oracle deal. You would, I think, massive company moves 30% in a day.
Yeah.
It's, the surprises won't just be positive ones too.
Yeah.
But
I
I
mean,
don't think it makes it not real.
yeah. I mean, the swings that you see, right? Like it's like, but Nvidia can move $250 billion in a day, basically.
Yeah.
It's like there's so much capital flowing in this space. It's absolutely wild. And I guess the thing that gives me confidence in the long term, regardless if we see a short term correction, is just is is my application. If I,
Yeah.
my indication of using AI and using it for more and more things and finding ways to integrate it in my day to day, it gives me confidence that this is something that will continue to grow regardless of what happens in the short term. And I think there's a lot of ancillary industries that benefit from this as well.
Yeah.
It's not only this AI component to it, right?
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think the other critique that seems to flow through, and it came out of an MIT study, or I think was catalyzed by an MIT study from the summer, was just questions about whether or not there's real business models and whether or not there's a revenue stream to support and backstop the massive investment being made. And I'm sure there's lots of experiments that don't make sense, which is what that study seemed to point out. But my own experience is there's a lot of services that I now like, oh, I kind of feel like I need to pay for it, or I want to pay for it. There's a lot of things that like unlocking my consumer spend, much less like from a corporate or from a business standpoint. Um,
Mhm.
and so I have to think that that's a good indicator. There is real business models emergent. They just may not be as visible today as people are in this sort of mass experimentation phase.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely spend a lot of money on AI. So
Yeah, I spend more than I'm willing to admit to my wife. So yeah,
yeah, and I don't know what I'd do without it, right? I don't know what I'd do without it anymore, right?
yeah.
Like it's unlocked so much productivity, the ability to do so much more with what I have. Like, my time's limited. And if I can, you know, unlock extra time essentially by having an assistant do something for me that
Hmm.
I'm paying $20 a month for, like that is insane value to me. I think it goes to say, like, if you were to create uh, a robot that can do the dishes and do the laundry, like what is that worth, right? If you consider
Yeah,
actually spending the money to have somebody do that for you, but you can buy this machine that will do it. Like there is so much value in terms of unlocking time for you that you can use doing more impactful things with your
yeah,
time that I absolutely see a pathway to very profitable companies, and that's just going to be further and further unlocked through time.
yeah. So many services become need to haves, and
I think it's partially
Yeah.
like let's give everybody the drugs, right? Let's get them hooked for free and take it away. Like you're not
Yeah.
I can't imagine like the only caveat to that is there are so many free models out there, and people will switch to those, right? But maybe they are hooked on one model, which I get because when I use these different models, I feel that some of them have very specific strengths, and that's what
Yeah.
I'm hooked on, right? I can't, if somebody takes away ChatGPT, I use ChatGPT for certain applications that I can't find in another LLM. I use Gemini for certain applications that I can't find elsewhere. I use Perplexity for like. I think once you really get into these models, you find that they aren't necessarily replaceable. They complement each other, and they all have their own strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, and even the connective tissue between it, like I find myself looking at a lot of the services that will connect those models into other software I use, whether it be, just like on a simple level, like an email layer or something like that. Like there's just things that connectors also that I would be willing to pay for to make the automations work and allow the agents to actually access a broader surface area of what I need to get done. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's an interesting ecosystem to see how it all unfolds.
yeah. The connected framework is what's really exciting, and I'm just really looking forward to the day where Microsoft incorporates AI into its operating system and basically is sort of an agentic style.
Yeah, well, it
Great.
can't be that far off.
No, no, I'm sure we'll have it, within a
Yeah,
year or two for sure. I'm sure they're like heavily working on it.
yeah. Well, maybe that's a good place to leave it. Exciting times. Go get back to your agents. I gotta get back to my agents
Yeah,
and team.
totally. Well, as
All right.
always, great
Well,
chat. Everybody, thanks for watching.
all right. Talk
Have a
soon,
good
then.
day. Yeah, see ya.